Alright you guys, this is going to be a bit of a different style of video. If you're unfamiliar with my channel, this is not something I do often, but recently I got a little bit of a computer upgrade. So as of now, I am playing with a GTX 1060 3 GB of RAM. The 3 gigs of RAM isn't too important for what we're doing here today. As long as you have a decent graphics card, this is going to be possible. You can see just chilling, I'm at about 1,000 frames a second in this void world, because I don't want to waste your guys' time, so we're starting with the best, and we're going to work our way down into the more casual playstyles. And then you can see I've upgraded to an i7-7700K. If you don't know anything about computers, don't worry, that's just one of the higher end i7s in its price range, and I highly recommend it for gaming if you're a content creator. Otherwise, the price of performance is a little bit, not going to get into that in this video. So, I'm going to be showing you guys how to get to 3,000 frames a second. So, right now I've already upped my FPS to something I want to show. Okay, so I have my render distance to 32, but I want to show you guys something interesting. So I'm using Optifine just to get the FPS at the top, because actually opening F3 drops my frames. You can see I just lost about 1,000 frames a second by opening this. So to get that off my screen, we're going to leave that down. So to optimize these settings, now this video isn't just pure clickbait. There are some things you can take away from this, such as turning down these different settings will actually help you a lot. For example, turning your frame rate to Vsync will lock it to the amount of the refresh rate of your monitor. My monitor is 60 Hz, so it goes to 60 FPS. If your monitor is 120, it'll go to 120, etc. So long as you're getting that FPS. So Vsync off just gives you a good number. If I could see it, let's keep it at the blue background. Yeah, there we go. So now you guys can see my FPS quite clear. Obviously, render distance all the way down. The lower the better. FPS skyrockets when you do that, because the less your CPU is doing, the better. Graphics fast would usually help. In this case, we're going to do it, but all we've got is stone and a piece of cobblestone to render. So let's continue. Smooth lighting all the way off. Brightness is pretty much irrelevant. Dynamic lights is off. Of course, I'm using Optifine because that's pretty much the first step in getting your frame rates higher. Dynamic field of view doesn't matter. Details, trees, we don't have any trees. Clouds go off. You can see I have a fancy background. Translucent blocks would be off, but we don't have any of those in this void world. Sun and moon off. Don't want to render that. Rain and snow, you'd want to turn that off if there was any rain and snow. Fog, of course, off. Alternate blocks is something I prepped in advance because that takes a little while for it to render. This has mostly to do with chunk loading as you're flying through a world. However, right now it shouldn't affect graphics at all. And you can see we're already at about 2,000 frames a second. Let's keep going. No, we don't care about language. Performance. All of this, everything on, chunk updates 1, we'll make that minimal. And then you're going to want to do animations, those don't really matter. Quality, custom sky, off. That's going to turn off my super fancy clouds. And that's bringing us all the way up to 2600. And then the one final thing is if I minimize my Minecraft, we should be getting to about 3,000 frames. Oh, can we do it? Can we do it? Oh, it's a little tough. I was getting this when I wasn't recording. But let's close the inventory. Come on, 2028. Come on. I just can't do it. Here, I'm going to show you guys probably in the video of 3,000 frames a second when I'm not recording. Alright, so there you have it. 3,000 frames a second. Let's get this back up to a normal size. And then show you guys some other benchmarks. So first off, for the rest of this video, I'll be upping my settings back to normal because this is a little bit more back to earth. So if you're here for the 3,000 FPS, there you go. You kind of got it. I can't do it while recording because if you know anything about computer software, my graphics card is encoding this video, computer hardware and software. My graphics card is encoding this video while I'm playing, which absolutely takes away from Minecraft because it can play Minecraft and render at the same time, but it takes a little bit of it to do that. So unfortunately I had to stop recording to show that, but as soon as I stopped recording it went right up. So let me just turn my performance. 5 just loads my chunks faster, and let's see if I can get the rest of my settings back to normal. Sun and moon, turn that back on. And now I get the nice fancy background. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing this on camera just to kind of show how fast all this works. Now obviously one of the things that people don't like to recommend when you're trying to go for a computer upgrade or go for high frames per second in Minecraft is frankly just a computer upgrade is the best way to do it. If you're not getting the kind of FPS I'm getting, that's fine. My computer is about $1,000 with all things included. The hardware that's benefiting this system or this kind of frame rate is like the graphics card was a couple hundred, the CPUs goes for about 350. Motherboard's fairly irrelevant in this situation, but you can get a decent one. Like mine was about 140 with the CPU, 170 normal. So a computer upgrade can go a long way. But all of these tips will help in any computer configuration. So let's just load a new world, and I was hoping I wouldn't get a village. I probably could have shut that off, but there you go. I just wanted to show kind of what I get in a perfectly flat world. It's actually a very playable, 900 or more. Or actually, when I'm loading a village, it's actually like 700 to 900 frames a second. As soon as I stop rendering that, and then even look at the ground, it goes all the way up to like 1500-ish frames a second. You look in the sky, and this is all about what you're rendering. In Minecraft, it's very optimized for what you're looking at is the only thing your graphics card is actually rendering. And up here I'm getting about almost 2,000, over 2,000. As soon as I load some slimes jumping around, it goes back down to 1,200. And then of course as soon as I load some interesting textures like a village, now we're getting back down, down to about 700 frames a second, which is absolutely playable. Something I probably should have stressed sooner though, you guys, is frame rate just it's not as important as everyone thinks. I mentioned earlier about Vsync. I always play with this on just because it makes my recordings look better. I'm sure this video will be filled with screen tearing. As long as you're hitting the refresh rate of your monitor, that's all you can see anyway. Don't think for a second that I'm actually seeing 1,000 frames a second. It's not that smooth. I'm only seeing 60. But the last thing I actually personally wanted to show was a brand new world. Just completely normal, leave everything on, cheats on so I can head to creative, and oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's make it creative, and then world type default, create new world. So one thing that's very good when testing a new world is loading terrain. So for me, this is going to go very fast. This new CPU is amazing, yeah. And this is at 12 chunks. But believe me, I have spent my fair amount of time before you want to leave a comment or envy or whatever. Like, I have spent my fair amount of time waiting minutes for these worlds to load. I have spent time on like Xbox and even on my shitty old computer where I'd be still loading this first and maybe second chunk at this point in the recording. But now I can just kind of play freely, and I wanted to load up the FPS because I'm sure for some of you who can't afford a GTX 1060 and you don't have a 7700K, you might want to live a little vicariously and just see what kind of frame rate I get. And this is kind of for you. I get about 600, 500. I get a playable above 200 whenever I'm loading entities or whatever, and about 300 usually. And as I'm flying around loading new terrain, looks like I'm at about 670, 650, 500. Oh, dipping down to 480. You can see it live. So this is kind of what it's like loading new terrain. I always play on 12. I play on the server Minerva. I started it. It's more of a technical community where we hang out and build giant farms and stuff and play in survival and do things like that. And our server render distance is 12, so it's just kind of second nature to me. People usually play on far. 32 is for insane people, and you'll see that my chunks don't load that fast when I'm doing this. It would take a very, very powerful computer to play on 32 render distance. You can see it just takes a while. So I would recommend 16 as far as playability goes. And of course, 2 chunks is the best for absolute performance. However, I used to play on 8 regularly, and I'd still recommend that. It's a very good thing to play on. But there you go. Render distance far, I'm still at about 300 FPS. And that just about concludes this video. I'm going to go in for some extra credit now and maybe log into my nerve. What am I doing on the server? I don't know. Oh, we're at a big hole. Perfect. So let's head to our leggy storage room and check that out. Ah, you guys did no work on our thing while we were building it. Okay, that's right where I left it 2 hours ago when I left to eat. That's okay. We're going to head over to our storage room, which if any of you guys have seen my videos before should know that this is one of the most intensive areas on any world I've ever played on. So here's an unfinished slime farm, and this is all for benchmarking, just to see how our computer performs. So, our storage room over here has about, you can see it on Optifine, about 3,800 entities, up to about 400, or about 4,000 chests and stuff like that. And this is the frame rate I get in here while it's sorting. Actually pretty good. Obviously, I wanted to save this one for last because this is sort of unique to Minerva members. Only people a part of our community can actually join this world and see how it runs. I take that back completely. There's actually a world download in a video I'll link in the description where you guys can go check that out, where I actually provided a world download for this storage room. So if you want to hop in here and see what kind of frame rate you can get, post in the comments below. I'm legitimately interested because I was actually warned beforehand of someone who had the 7700K. He said while it was sorting in single player, he was getting about 95 frames a second, which is pretty much where I'm getting. Trust me, if I wasn't recording and if I knock off 4 chunks, it actually goes up right away. Yeah, this is one of the most intensive areas because while it's sorting, there's a bunch of items popping around. You can see that entity count is going to rise a little bit. There's just a lot of chests to render, and it's very laggy. So that just about concludes it. There's a bunch of FPS tests. There's a bunch of ways to optimize Minecraft, and a little bit of proof that I can hit 3,000 frames a second in perfect circumstances where there's a completely void world. Asterisk for that. Maybe if there wasn't any stone there, it would go a little bit higher, but as I explained with the rendering, if I look above it and stop rendering that, it shouldn't make any difference at all, because stone is not a tile entity. It doesn't have any asterisk. Yeah. Stone doesn't have any data in it. Like a chest, you have to render the inventory, and the game has to process whatever's inside of it, like leather, and stone, it doesn't have to do that. At this point, I'm rambling. Hope you guys enjoyed. You should totally check out the world download. In fact, I'm going to post the link to that in this video instead of linking you to the other video. I'll do both, but I'm going to put that in here right now. We're going to use the RubiCenter while it is sorting items as a benchmark. Tell me what kind of FPS you guys can get, and put what you run as well, whether or not you're using Optifine, whether or not your frame rate is locked, what your render distance is. Just use what you guys play at. And just remember, as long as you're hitting your refresh rate, it doesn't matter. The only reason I have a 7700K is so that I can render and edit these videos faster and easier for you guys. And it makes streaming much easier as well. As long as I'm hitting 60 FPS, I'm happy. Hope you guys enjoyed, and someone tore down my house.